You're watching Wired Up Retro. It's episode number 60, and in today's episode we're going to be looking at games that involve using two joysticks at once, and I like to call these dual joystick games. And whether we're talking about the arcade games of the past or the latest outer space combat dual flight stick simulators on the consoles of today, you'll be putting your eye-hand coordination to the test in one of the best ways imaginable by wielding these dual joysticks. Recently, I was made aware that a very creative YouTuber has designed 3D printed dual flight sticks that you attach to your PlayStation 4 DualShock 4 controller or your Xbox One controller for the purpose of playing Star Wars Squadrons and other 3D-oriented games. The channel name is Akaki Kumeri, and you should check out the link in the description if you want to pay him a visit. As you can see, putting one of these together might take a little patience. In his video, he admitted that the final product is a bit flimsy with strings being involved, but with the right button assignment in the game's option menu, the controls can have that authentic flight cockpit feel, certainly better than just holding a gamepad to play it. So I'm really liking what he's done there, and in this episode I'm going the next step further with another controller option that doesn't have any strings attached. So I'm sure this will be a very interesting episode for those of you who are interested in current day gaming, especially with this new Star Wars video game that's come out, Star Wars Squadrons. So my plan for today is to do two interesting things. Firstly, I'm going to go over the history of wielding two joysticks for the two-stick games over the course of the past 8 generations of video game consoles. The second thing I want to do is to take that Sony dual analog flight sticks controller from the PlayStation 1 era and get it working with adapters on our current day consoles to play games like Star Wars Squadrons, among other pretty nice two-stick games. And I made this discovery about adapters recently, and you'll be pleased to know that it has the added benefit of really bringing your VR setup to the next level. So prepare yourself as we take a journey that starts a long time ago and ends in a galaxy far, far away. Okay, so as you know, in today's episode, I do want to show you a little bit about the history of two-stick gaming. And I'm going to go back to the granddaddy of them all, the Atari 2600, and just mention to you that you can play two-stick games. You probably watched in my last episode me playing some Stargate, a little bit of Spy Hunter. You can also play games like Radar Lock, Solaris. Those are two-stick games. So, you know, one way to do it would be to just take two controllers and put them on a table in front of you, especially the ones with suction cups. And if you put it on a base that's flat and you got them suction cup down, you can just two-stick your way through those games. Also on the 7800, this game Robotron 2084 can be played that way also. In fact, I have a couple of Atari 2600 controllers here. These are the QuickShot 2 Plus. And these controllers have suction cups, so you just plant them and you can, have the two-stick situation, and it's pretty nice. But of course you have to have a table in front of you. It can be a little inconvenient. Another option though that I'll mention, and this will work for the Atari 2600 games or the Atari 7800 games, would be to grab an Atari 7800 coupler. Okay, let me grab these. So these are my 7800 controllers, and you can actually 3D print a coupler. Now, way back in the 80s, Atari was going to make a coupler, but the plans got scrapped, and I think there's a prototype or some prototypes of the coupler. But if you want to make your own, you can 3D print it and put these in there and just two-stick your way on your 7800 game, Robotron 2084. And so that's really reminiscent of what was going on with the Atari 5200 with its coupler to play its version of Robotron 2084, which is pretty similar to the 7800. So yeah, this is really nice. I like, in a way, these recentering joysticks actually feel pretty good to play Robotron on the 5200. These automatically do recenter, and they're a little less, I guess you could say, it's a little less ideal to use these, I think, compared to the 5200 controller setup, because these have little indents for your thumbs. So this actually works just like, you know, a Sony dual analog or dual shock controller with its two thumbsticks. So you can just control it in the same way with having that planted in your hands. Oh yeah, and there's another option I want to talk to you about. Packaged in with the Sears Video Arcade 2 game console, which is an Atari 2600, are these joysticks. They also are serve as paddles, interestingly. But they're, you know, mainly you could use this as a joystick setup. And what you would do, instead of having these 5200 controllers in this coupler from the 80s, you pop those controllers out and you slide these on into place to replace them. And this will also enable you to play, let's say, Robotron 2084 on your 7800, or there's going to be a new 2600 version of Robotron 2084 coming out in the early part of 2021. So I think we're all pretty much anticipating, you know, playing that, and this will be one way to play it. If you have a 5200 coupler, you can use these. So yeah, there's a couple of options there. I just wanted to run by you there. Another classic gaming console that could use two controllers to play particular games is the Intellivision with its two controller games, Tron Deadly Discs and Night Stalker. And the reason that the games were programmed like that had to do with the fact that if you're using the keypad and you're using the disc at the same time, as soon as you press that keypad, the disc input gets kind of halted temporarily. So ultimately the programmers gave you the option of picking up two of the Intellivision controllers, and one would, you know, be for the keypad use and the other one would be for the disc use, and then the guy wouldn't pause when you would be pressing that keypad. So it had a good purpose there, and you can play those two controller games. All right. So I'm going to move on and talk a little bit about the Sega and NES game systems. First off, no Sega Master System games support two-stick control. So let's just get that out of the way. We're not going to talk about the Master System. Let's touch on the NES. You can use two controllers next to each other, held vertically as opposed to the normal horizontal position that you hold them, to play two different games. You can play Smash TV on your NES. With the two controller setup. You could also play Crazy Climber, but that's only available on the Famicom. So ultimately, those are games that are fun to play with two controllers, and you can even use joystick NES controllers and just turn them sideways and stick away on those games. So it can be a whole lot of fun to use on your NES. Now for the Genesis, the Sega Genesis, you could use two controllers next to each other to play just one game, and that's Super Smash TV. So again, you could get two Genesis gamepads and use the D-pad, but again, this episode's kind of more about the joysticks. So you could always take a Sega joystick, arcade stick, two of them, and you got it rolling for playing Super Smash TV. All right, now moving forward, between the Genesis game system and the PlayStation 1, none of the systems on the market allowed for two-stick game control. So that would include the TurboGrafx game system, the Super Nintendo, the CDI made by Philips. Of course, there's 3DO, there's Jaguar CD, 32X. That I know of, none of those game systems could have two-stick games. All right, so let's move forward, and now we'll touch on the PlayStation generation. So what controller I mentioned before was this one. This is the Sony Analog Joystick, the SCPH1110. And it has an analog mode and a digital mode on board. You just click this switch and it'll put it into one of those modes. So I do like to call this the dual analog flight sticks controller, okay? They look like flight sticks, not so much, well, I mean, they're a joystick too, but it's a little more of a specific name. So I just want to mention the games that you would want to use this in analog mode on your PlayStation 1 would be games like Ace Combat and Armored Core. You can also play some of the games in digital mode, such as games on various PlayStation 1 classic game compilation discs. And maybe even Robotron X, which is a game that's the sequel to this one. Robotron X is a whole lot of fun. I would definitely recommend, if you have this, that you try playing it with it, because you can have a blast. All right, so there's another game system that I want to tell you about. It's the Sega Saturn, and it had a controller called the TwinSticks. And this was primarily used for Virtual On Cyber Troopers, which was a very popular game in the arcades and on the Sega Saturn. And a number of other games were also released for the Sega Saturn, which I'm showing below. So if you take a look at that list, you'll see there were a few. They were basically all released in Japan. Now, if you want to go to the Nintendo 64, you could play two-stick or two-controller games. These would be played basically like this, and then you could use maybe the trigger button on the underside of the controller. And, you know, the games that you could use this with include Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, and each engine is actually controlled independently with these sticks in that game. And you plug them into port 1 and port 3 of your N64. This does actually require a special code to be entered each time you turn on your system to play the game this way. It is a little bit of a hassle, but it's kind of extra cool. Other games that you can use two controllers with on the N64 happen to be GoldenEye, Robotron 64, which is like Robotron X for the PlayStation, and then Perfect Dark. So basically, you could also buy N64 joysticks or flight sticks and put those together and play. Instead of using these, you could actually use a legit joystick, pair of joysticks. And I'm showing you on the screen a couple examples there. Now, for the Dreamcast, you had the TwinSticks for Virtual On Oratorio Tengram, and a number of other games. Again, I'm showing you the list below. It includes Rez and Ikaruga and other games like it. You could do Arrow Wings. I think some of those are going to be one-stick control, not two. Even Quake 3 Arena, I believe, had actual two-stick control with the twin sticks. Now, you can also use it on Virtua Tennis and Soul Calibur, and you can even use Saturn twin sticks on your Dreamcast. You basically just have to buy an adapter that accomplishes that called the Total Control 3. All right, now we'll go on forward to the PlayStation 2 game console, and you can use those Sony dual analog flight sticks on the PlayStation 2 to play PS1 games because, you know, it's backward compatible with those PS1 games. But you can also play some actual PS2 games in analog mode. You can play R-Type Final and Extreme G3 Racing. In the digital mode, you can play Metal Slug Anthology, Gradius 3, and Gradius 4. So pretty cool. You can actually use it on the PS2 to some degree, although it's a little limited. Now, on the GameCube, there's a discovery that was made a few years ago on RacketBoy.com. One of the users there, CRT Gamer, made a discovery where he used a Mayflash Cube Joy Box to get the Sony Flight Sticks, the controller, once again, this controller, working on GameCube games that put both analog sticks into use. A good game to try this with is Fireblade. So definitely, if you're looking into playing on the GameCube with the twin sticks, I would definitely promote that particular game, Fireblade. All right, on the original Xbox, the Steel Battalion controller was just ruling over all the others because it's just such a massive controller, and it plays well on the game Steel Battalion and the sequel game called Steel Battalion Line of Contact. So if you ever wanted to see the most massive controller of all time, I think that's your controller. I wish I could get that working on the Atari 5200, and I think if I ever were to accomplish that, that would probably be the ultimate controller for that system. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the Nintendo Wii game system. Now you can, again, use CRT Gamer's adapter option on Wii games that let you plug in a GameCube controller to the GameCube port in your Wii. And you get two-stick gameplay using that. Also, another option is to buy a Mayflash PSX Classic controller adapter because it has compatibility with the Sony flight sticks, and you can use that on Wii games that let you use a Wii Classic controller. All right, now moving forward, we can go into the PlayStation 3 game system. PlayStation 3, if you use a PS1 to PS3 adapter, yeah, I think you can play those PS1 PS1 games, that, you know, backward compatibility of the PS3 on your PS3. So that might be an option you want to try out. Unfortunately, really, no PlayStation 3 games support a controller that has two joysticks on it. I mean, other than maybe something like a HOTAS type situation where you have the throttle and the joystick or flight stick. Yeah, you're not going to have the actual two flight sticks type controller working on PS3 games. Well, maybe you will soon, but I'll go into that later. All right, now I also want to mention the Xbox 360 Mad Catz flight stick. That's a wireless option for you. It has the throttle, just a handle, okay? It's not really a two-stick controller, but there is an Xbox 360 controller that you could say is a two-stick controller. This is the Mad Catz arcade controller. Basically, Mad Catz has a joystick here. That's primarily for your left stick control, and then the right stick is right here. There's even a little spinner knob for certain games that allowed it to be used. Now, one thing that I've decided to do is to take this sharpshooter fit over, I guess you could say they're thumbstick add-ons that stack. It's stackable, and it can actually make a little taller joystick for the right stick and play games for the Xbox 360 that would, you know, be intuitively games you'd want to try. I would say maybe one of the Virtual On type games might be a good choice, or you can play Robotron 2084 on the Xbox 360, but a really great example that this works well with, I have tried it, is the Tron, Discs of Tron game, and also the original Tron 1982 arcade game, which fortunately works very well with this controller. And I've given it a good shot. I definitely had a lot of fun playing with this. The version that's on the Xbox 360 has some audio issues. I would just say the music isn't quite as fantastic as what you got when you went to the arcade. It's got a little bit of intonation, but in the end, it's a pretty good game. I mean, the gameplay's there, so I would definitely recommend that you go and download that and give it a shot. All right, now getting into the newer game systems, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, as of right now, there's really no good two-stick controller options for those systems other than what I showed at the beginning of the episode today with the 3D printed TwinSticks. That's a pretty incredible thing that he's done there. But yeah, in the end, I kind of want to show you today another option that you can do for, you know, game systems that are newer. Not just the, you know, the latest and greatest systems like PS4 or Xbox One or even PS5 or Xbox Series X, but maybe some of the other systems like Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 might also be ones you'd be interested in trying this out with. So yeah, I'm just going to be showing you what adapters I use to accomplish using the Sony dual flight sticks on these newer systems. Okay, so we want to get this analog joystick for PS1 working on newer game systems. So let me tell you a little bit about how to do this for the PlayStation 3. Now this is called the Trio Linker Plus 2. This is a very uncommon adapter. It used to be pretty easily found online about 2 or 3 years ago and more, but within the past 2 years it's gone pretty rare. And that's mainly not just because it's a PlayStation controller port, but it also supports Dreamcast and GameCube controllers on, you know, systems like PS3 and also PC. So that made it pretty popular, and it's now out of production, unfortunately, so this might be a toughie to find. But in a minute, I'm going to show you an easier adapter to find that it will also be able to get this working on newer game systems. But I do want to show you this one first, since it is a relevant adapter. So if you're going to plug this into the PS3 and plug this into something, well, you're not going to actually plug this into the PlayStation port. You're going to plug this into this PlayStation port of the Classic Linker N64 adapter. Now, it's called the Classic Linker N64 because you can plug an N64 controller into this and get it working on a GameCube, which is kind of a popular idea for some people. It also allows classic Wii controllers, Wii Classic controllers, to be compatible on the GameCube. So ultimately, you're going to take this and plug it into Classic Linker N64, then take your GameCube port of this adapter and plug it in right here. Ultimately, you got it plugged in there, then you plug this in your PS3. Now, you might be wondering, okay, what if I want to get this working on Xbox 360, a PS4, or an Xbox One? What adapter would I use? Well, you want to use this CronusMax Plus adapter. Now, these, unfortunately, have gone into short supply, mainly because they are out of production, and they're being replaced by the Cronus Zen. And the Cronus Zen is also in short supply thanks to the virus, which is depleting products all around in the electronics arena. But anyway, I'm just letting you know, the Cronus Zen and the CronusMax Plus, they will work similarly. It's just the Cronus Zen has some additional features and extra connectivity. All right, so that is what you plug into the CronusMax Plus, and then that would go into your, let's say, PS4 or your Xbox One or your Xbox 360. Now, another thing I've got to mention to you here is that this has to be preset by plugging it into its program port, a mini USB cable, into your laptop, and then go and get the software for it. And Cronus Pro is the name of the software, and you'll have to just figure out from reading the manual how to get it set. So it'll be a, let's say, a PS3 to PS4 controller adapter, or PS3 to Xbox 360 controller adapter, whatever your system is that you're wanting to convert it to. You would do it within the software of your laptop and program that with it. All right, so there you go. That's the number one basic way of getting this working on some of these new consoles. Oh, and one more thing that I do want to mention is that the CronusMax Plus has a capability of running what are called GPC scripts. Okay, these are little mini programs that are written to do things like button mapping, adjustments, or other reasons. All right, so I want to show you on method one what it would be like if you don't run a GPC script. Okay, you can see the downsides. Missing buttons. You're missing R2. You're missing the options button, which is also known as start or menu. You're missing the L3 button, the R3 button, the PS home button, the touchpad, to click in on the PS4 controller. So, that's kind of some downsides. And, the game Star Wars Squadrons uses a lot of different buttons for different purposes. So I have created a GPC script that you load into one of the memory slots of your CronusMax Plus. And, of course, Cronus Zen, if you happen to have one of those. So this is going to enable you to get a whole lot of those missing buttons really actually working on the analog joystick. And another thing is I have actually placed some of these buttons in a more intuitive position on the controller itself so that you can play the game more effectively. So all around, it's going to be very helpful. I'm going to be doing this also on method 2. There will be a script written for that as well for the purpose of making things work a little bit better. And another thing worth mentioning is that if you don't like this script for another type of game, let's say you're playing, I don't know, Ace Combat 7, and you're thinking, wow, I really don't like the way he's got this set up for that game, whereas with Star Wars Squadrons, it was pretty ideal. Well, there can be additional CronusMax scripts written for the purpose of getting this ideal for other particular games. So just letting you know, it's definitely, something you can tweak. Okay, so now I want to go on to method number 2 of getting connected to these newer game systems. So we're going to go ahead and unplug this from the Trio Linker Plus 2. We're removing this rare adapter and putting in some less rare adapters. By the way, this one, the classic Linker N64, is not in short supply as of this moment here in the year 2020. By, I'm thinking, mid-2021, it might be in short supply. So you might want to grab one. They come in white, also black. I got the black one. Okay, so let's get this out of here. And so what you're going to purchase next is an 8BitDo USB wireless adapter, okay? And this is an adapter that accepts, let's say, Nintendo Switch wireless controllers. That's going to go into your CronusMax Plus, which then goes into your system of choice, like PS4, Xbox One, and maybe even eventually some of the even newer systems once the CronusMax team gets their products completely adapted to PS5 and Xbox Series X. All right, so then you'll be buying this GBros controller adapter, and this is made by 8BitDo also. And it takes batteries. You put the batteries in there. It's got a GameCube port. It's also got a Wii Classic controller port. We're going to ignore that for now. So you're going to take your classic Linker N64, plug it into the GameCube port. You're going to follow the instructions that come in the manual that shows you how to get connected to your Switch console. Once you've got that connected to this, which is plugged into your PS4, and by the way, there's a little authentication that's required. You have to plug in your PS4 controller, let's say you're on a PS4, and get it authenticated, then yank it, and then put this in, and it'll suddenly be ready to get connected to this. So yeah, you'll press this button, it'll blink quick, then you'll press one of these buttons, and then it automatically connects, and you've got yourself a wireless connection now with your Sony controller, the analog joystick. Now, when you're playing using method 2, I'm showing you the setup of how things will work out here. There are some downsides. As you can see, I've listed some. You've got a lot of missing buttons. You've got a D-pad left constantly firing, and same with the square button constantly firing. These are going to be problematic pretty much most of the time in most games. I did find one PS4 game where it really wasn't that big of a deal. I could actually play it. Geometry Wars was actually okay on the PS4 without implementing a GPC script. But you can load in a GPC script for Method 2, and here I am showing this to you, and I've reconfigured it, kind of, again, steering it towards being able to play Star Wars Squadrons a little bit more effectively with better button placement on the two sticks. Unfortunately, the D-pad left does not function, as you can see here. There's no share button or select button in the GPC script. There's no R3 button, but those aren't really a big deal for the game Star Wars Squadrons. And ultimately, to get an O press, you have to actually press both triggers simultaneously. So do check out some of my multi-button presses that are listed there on the right side. All right, so yeah, let's get playing some games. Now, when you get your PlayStation 4 game, Star Wars Squadrons, you're going to notice when you open this up, there's a little, it's not a manual, but it's just a little sheet of paper that shows you the button setups for your DualShock 4 controller. And you can also get to that in the game itself. So the nice thing about the GPC script that I wrote for method number 1, which we're about to play, is that you can print this out. You just go down to the description below, you find it, print it, and then you can lay it next to your controller. And during the gameplay, if you are forgetting along the way what R3 is, you press the D-pad up plus the L1 button right here, then you just take a look at this real quick and you'll be able to get that action accomplished. So hopefully that makes sense. So all right, let's go ahead and give Star Wars Squadrons a playthrough on using method 1. Okay, close it by pressing circle. All right, here we go.
All that damage and this thing still has teeth.
No wonder TAMAScript took a beating just chasing it here.
Okay, get that Star Destroyer. Okay, so to hit square, that's the, let's see, which button is my square button? Press up and L2. There we go.
This is our chance to capture that Star Destroyer. If we take the bridge, we'll have access to its internal system. These Imperials just keep coming.
All right, now I need to aim for ties. There we go.
Imperial finds here. Right here and ready to go. Get over to Hub Frisk. Yes! Thanks, Five. I owe you one. Great work. U-Wings are on their way. We can bring the boarding team in safely. The crew won't be a problem with no computer access. And all the blast doors locked. We've got the Imperial carrier. They're launching reinforcements.
All right, so I've got the second setup, method number 2. I'll put that sheet here so I can be reminded how to play the game.
Army Vanguard. Let's regroup at the Victoria. The boarding team might need support. We're almost through those blast doors.
This method is a little bit more sensitive.
They've got 3 carriers.
It's definitely a little bit
Get ready, everyone.
touchy.
Taking control now.
All right, so I'm back at the title screen. I have determined that maybe the sensitivity of the pitch and the yaw and the roll functions are a little too high. And also maybe the dead zone isn't high enough on these sticks. So there's a way to address that, and that number 1 would be go to options and go down to controls. And we're gonna go on down here. And there we go. We've got global dead zone. I don't think we need to mess with that, but we're going to do the pitch dead zone and up that to about 8%. And pitch sensitivity, we're going to reduce by 10%, down from 50% to 40%. We'll see if that's enough. Yaw dead zone, we'll go ahead and up that to about 8%. Controller yaw sensitivity, drop that to 40%. Roll dead zone up to 8%. And then roll sensitivity down to 40%. Hopefully that's enough. There we go. Throttle dead zone. You know what? I don't know if how about we just do 4% on throttle. Throttle sensitivity, I think we were fine on that. That looks fine. Okay, so we got it. I'm gonna go back. It's hopefully saved that, and we're back to this screen. We'll go back to the story mode, and let's pick up where I left off.
Understood. We'll put an end to that bombing runs.
Let me hit you with
All right, so it definitely was better. I could probably even touch down that sensitivity a little bit more, but I think the dead zone was about right. So I hope you've enjoyed the episode. I've had a whole lot of fun presenting this to you. Both Method 1 and Method 2 seem to be working pretty well. And so definitely I'm looking forward to reading in the comments below some of the feedback of those of you who have decided to try this. And if you haven't decided to try it but still enjoyed the episode, definitely give this video a like and subscribe to my channel if you want to get more content that not only has to do with the classic games, but also the newer games, systems and controllers. By all means, I am here for you. So I look forward to seeing new subscribers. All right, guys, it was nice talking with you, and I look forward to talking to you in the next video. All right, take care.